Prime Minister Modi's new cabinet. An eye on the Uttar Pradesh elections 2022. 7 new faces from Uttar Pradesh inducted. Pure politics or sheer competence? Top focus on To The Point this evening. Good evening, you're watching To The Point and I'm Preeti Chaudhary. With the Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections less than a year away, the Modi government has inducted 7 new faces from the state of Uttar Pradesh. The Saffron Party has tried to include a mix, 1 Brahmin, Dalits, OBCs. While inducting these ministers, many would suggest an eye was clearly put on the upcoming elections in the next 6 months in the state. My colleague Abhishek Mishra breaks it down for you on how possibly the Modi government in this case is looking at social engineering 6 months before elections.
मंत्रिमंडल के सदस्यों का
With the battle for Uttar Pradesh less than 6 months away, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has attempted a bit of social engineering. 7 new faces from India's most popular state are now part of Team Modi. 2 years after being dropped from the Modi cabinet, Apna Dal Sonelal leader Anupriya Patel makes a comeback into the government. A prominent Kurmi face in eastern UP, Patel is a key BJP ally in the Saffron Party's 2022 mission UP. BJP MP from reserved constituency Agra, SP Singh Baghel gives representation to Dalits, who have backed the party in recent elections.
प्रोफेसर SP सिंह बघेल ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित
The BJP has tried to include a mix of Brahmin and OBC faces from Uttar Pradesh, one of the deciding factors in the upcoming assembly elections. In doing so, the party has tried to blunt accusation of Thakur bias under Yogi Adityanath government in UP. But Nishad party isn't happy with Prime Minister Modi's cabinet arithmetic. They say exclusion of Praveen Nishad from Prime Minister's cabinet is a betrayal to the whole Nishad community.
निषाद अब आज के मतलब सोच रहे हैं कि धोखा हो रहा है, जो पिछली सरकारों ने धोखा दिया वही धोखा मिल रहा है। हम तो संयम से बैठे हुए हैं, धैर्य से बैठे हुए अपने आरक्षण के लिए कि सरकारों का दर्द दिल में है, दगाबाज सरकारों का दर्द दिल में है और जो है आज दिल मुश्किल में है।
With the induction of 7 new ministers including the ally partner, BJP has balanced the caste arithmetic in view of the UP Assembly elections. With the election just months away, the central leadership has taken the step towards targeting the battle for 2022. In Lucknow, Abhishek Mishra for India Today.
All right, viewers, so with these 7 faces now, there are in total 77 ministers in Modi's cabinet. 16 of them come from the state of Uttar Pradesh, a state which is going for elections in the next 6 months. So, is it just pure politics to get it all right, especially in terms of the caste arithmetic? Or is this sheer merit? Let's cut across to our panelists. We'll be joined very shortly with Javed Ansari, senior journalist. I have with me Kailash Adhikari, political analyst, and Rahul Srivastav, our national affairs editor. Rahul, you know, when we went through the list, when we saw it, it was expected that Uttar Pradesh is going to find a big chunk of those ministers which were sworn in yesterday, the 43 of them. Let's break it down, the 7 who have been made ministers now. 3 OBCs, 3 SCs, 1 Brahmin. Rahul, can you hear me?
Yes, Preeti, I can now.
Rahul, if we break it down in terms of just the caste arithmetic, it's clearly with an eye on elections 2022 Uttar Pradesh that these inductions have been made, the 7 of them.
Yes, Preeti, remember the BJP has traditionally done well in Uttar Pradesh. Every time it has been able to create what is called a Hindu monolith, that it manages to get the support of the subaltern Hindutva. That means those dispossessed eventually drop their caste identity and they embrace what is the larger ingredients of Hindutva. 2014, 2017, 2019, two Lok Sabha and one Assembly elections were dream run for the BJP. A lot of Dalit caste unhappy with Mayawati's handling of the Dalit issue because only they felt that the Jatas were benefiting. Akhilesh Yadav's tenure because the OBCs were unhappy that only the Yadavs were benefiting. The MBCs were feeling marginalized. The upper caste felt that they had no say in power. They wanted to be close to the power centers. They moved towards the BJP. Now, that is why the BJP did very well. But the 4.5 years of Yogi Adityanath government has completely altered the picture. You have the upper caste unhappy, like Brahmins are speaking out. You've got MBCs who are very unhappy. You just heard one of the leaders, Mr. Rajbhar. In fact, till a few days ago, Anupriya Patel of Amradal, a Kurmi leader, which is the second most dominant OBC caste in UP, the Nishat party and others were very unhappy. Now, that's the basic crisis, that when there are so many segments unhappy, a signal had to be sent. So what has the Prime Minister done? 27 total OBCs in the Council of Ministers are there now. 12 of them are Dalits, 11 of them are tribals, 8 of them are tribals. And very importantly, UP's emphasis on bringing these OBC faces from not only
Correct me if I'm wrong, Rahul, and I'm sorry to come in, 50% of the vote in UP is OBC vote.
Yes, it's the most dominant caste. Remember, it's the OBC is a multi-layered entity in UP, where there are some very stark rivalries, intra-OBC rivalries, that actually make it not a very homogeneous structure, and that is where the BJP's benefit lies. That it knows that the Yadavs may not vote for them because they are with the Samajwadi Party. There is a large section, because 50% of that 50% of OBC is the non-Yadav OBCs. And that's what the BJP usually goes in for, has gone in for in the last 3 elections.
Okay. All right. I'll bring in Javed as well, Javed Ansari into this conversation. Mr. Ansari, what is so wrong, to play to the political goals of the future? Successive governments have done it, and exactly the same has been done by this cabinet, the BJP hoping to get the caste arithmetic right by giving them representation in the cabinet.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong, so long as performance and merit is not sacrificed. You need to do a fine balancing act. Cabinet reshuffles are always a very fine balancing act between getting the social combination, regional representation, gender representation, and meritocracy in mind. So the Prime Minister and the BJP leadership have tried to do that. Now, whether, at least there are some appointments which excite you, which quicken the pulse, and they also make for good optics. But good optics doesn't always deliver on the ground, and the real test will be on how and when can this government try and kickstart the economy, what this government intends to do with regards to the farmers' problem. But because remember, you can have any number of non-Yadav OBCs and you can have any number of technocrats, but there is a huge problem staring this government in the face, and which is the angst amongst the farmers. Western UP, Haryana, Punjab, 3 major states in which the farmers are up in arms. And in Western UP, they formed the bedrock of BJP support. The BJP reaped a very rich political harvest in terms of seats in Western UP.
But Javed,
if this segment remains unhappy, the BJP may, politically, it may prove costly for the BJP.
But Mr. Ansari, if you look at that and if you go by that math, then Muzaffarnagar, the area, has gone completely to the BJP in the latest Zilla Parishad polls this time around.
Look, I don't really consider this a true and honest barometer, political barometer, such elections, because, and Rahul will bear me out, past experience has shown that whichever party is in power generally tends to rule the roost in these elections. You look at when the Samajwadi Party was in power, when Mayawati was in power, somewhat similar results. But they subsequently, when the assembly elections came, the results were quite different. So therefore, I am not for one getting totally carried away or reading too much into the recently held elections, into the results of the recently held elections.
All right, but then by that logic, the Samajwadi Party should not get excited because the Samajwadi Party also did score big in other parts of Uttar Pradesh. But stay with me, Mr. Ansari. I want to cut across right now to Kailash Adhikari as well. Kailash Adhikari, the fact is, there's nothing wrong in playing to political compulsions. You have an election in the next 6 months in a state where caste dynamics could pretty much rule the roost. So, is it okay to admit that this is all political and merit really doesn't quite come in?
Preeti, firstly, I like to say that for any cabinet expansion or any cabinet reshuffle, as told by Javed, there are a lot of boxes which the government has to tick. First and foremost should be performance, merit, and that is linked to good governance as well. Secondly, of course, as told by the other senior panelist about regarding the caste equations, because there are upcoming 2 elections and 2 major states. One is Uttar Pradesh, which is a politically very sensitive state, and the second state is Gujarat, where the Prime Minister also hails from. And third, always is a balancing act, as told by Javed. Now, performance must be considered, and that should be the primary consideration. For me, this cabinet reshuffle, which has happened yesterday, is a fine balance. If you talk about performance, for me, the top 2 picks are the Health Ministry, which has gone to Mansukh Mandavia ji, and the entire work done by him under the Department of Pharmaceuticals as MS Chemical and Fertilizers during the COVID time is noteworthy. And apart from that, also Ashwini Vaishnav for IT and Railways. That's a very good collaboration and good synergy where IT can also be woven into good technology for railways. Now, if we talk about representations, yes, 27 OBCs, 12 scheduled caste, 8 scheduled tribes, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, each and every government, we have seen that every 2 years when there is a cabinet reshuffle or expansion or midway, these certain boxes have to be ticked, and it's a fine balance, I feel.
All right, okay. Rahul, would you reckon this will actually work? Because what you were talking about earlier as well, and which is the reality of the state of Uttar Pradesh, the OBCs might be the dominant caste which, casts their ballot in Uttar Pradesh especially. But there are too many fractions in that as well. Have they actually got the caste arithmetic right to the best of their ability?
There are, I think, multiple problems. One, OBC vote is a national reality. According to National Sample Survey Organization, 41 to 42% voters in India belong to that caste. So it's not UP specific. But when it comes to UP, I think these exercises to inducting couple of people or 4 people or 27 members in the Council of Ministers, in UP, the contest is never single layered. It is not black and white. It is vignettes of gray. There are multiple layers to it. What kind of messaging and signaling goes in, that actually decides how a caste votes. This doesn't really complete it. Even if you come to the case study, let's see the people who have walked in. Kaushal Kishore was a Samajwadi Party leader. He was a minister in Mulayam Singh Yadav's government. Recently, he had a case in which his son was involved in an incident when he said somebody fired on him, but eventually it turned out that he had got somebody to fire on him. Controversial character. SPS Baghel, very interesting character. He was actually at one time the PSO with the Mulayam Singh Yadav, contested elections as a member of parliament, Samajwadi Party. He joined the BSP, came to Rajya Sabha, then he joined the BJP. Now he is being talked about as a SC leader. Go to his own resume in the Lok Sabha website. Between 2015 to 2018, the gentleman was the head national president of the BJP OBC Morcha. So a OBC Morcha leader is today SC. So given that standing, can he be interpreted or perceived as a big OBC face in Uttar Pradesh? Very difficult. So in UP, the signaling has to be much better.
Javed, for a party, Mr. Ansari, which is largely seen as an upper caste party, and that is what the BJP is perceived as, where Uttar Pradesh comes into play. Tokenism like this will work, you reckon?
Look, that's the story of the past. There's a conscious effort now on the part of Mr. Narendra Modi and Mr. Amit Shah to try and broad-base the social alliance to the BJP social support base. They did that very successfully in Uttar Pradesh the last time round. This time, ever since Mr. Yogi Adityanath has become the chief minister, the government there has come to be identified with a particular caste. And they are cognizant of the fact, at least the central leadership, and now the fact that you have so many ministers and they've made a conscious effort to bring on board some of the non-Yadav OBC caste. Now, whether this will pay dividends on the ground remains to be seen, because 4.5 years have passed when everybody else was neglected. So whether in the last 6 months they can make up for what happened for what didn't happen, or what happened in the last 4.5 years, remains to be seen. But this is a difficult choice. But nonetheless, they've made an effort. They are conscious of the shortcomings, and they're making an effort to try and plug them. I mean, you can only plug it with whatever tools you have at your command. They may not have a crowning jewel amongst them, but SP Baghel or a lot of others. And Rahul was right. Anupriya Patel, had they not brought her into the ministry, there was speculation, and I do know for a fact that the Samajwadi Party there was some back channel contacts, and who knows, at the time of the elections, maybe a switchover would have happened. As it is, her mother and the other faction is already in touch. So it's not just about bringing on board, it's also about covering your flanks and saving yourself from potential bushfires.
Kailash, no matter how much one wants to harp on meritocracy, which has been with what the BJP says the hallmark of this government, how much one harps on that, or competence, the fact is ultimately calculations are made on the metrics of the caste.
Preeti, yes, you're absolutely right. This is somewhere, I believe, the sad reality. And as a youth of this nation, I really want one day where, the entire focus is on merit. And I've said this on your platform as well in the past, that how much ever merit one possesses at the end of the day, because the equations are such, and we have made in the past 70 years, the equations are such that one has to, if one has to win the elections, one has to think on those particular terms. But I believe at this point of time, with regards to a cabinet expansion, looking at a state, this is the maximum that one can do. See, also the party has to take on allies, to keep on allies in the cabinet reshuffle, be it Anupriya Patel ji from the Apna Dal from UP, or be it Pashupati Paras ji from the LJP or from the RJD. So, apart from that, when the state goes to poll, there is a whole lot of new dynamics that comes into play within the state, and what is the factors, there's the issues, that the governance. With the cabinet reshuffle, what maximum you can achieve by providing representation is the maximum that the government has done.
All right. Okay. Appreciate you all for joining us. Thank you, gentlemen. It'll be interesting to note how this actually translates onto the ground or the grass root level where Uttar Pradesh is concerned, because it is going to elections in the next 6 months to come. Will this just be viewed as tokenism, or will it actually bring in, change in terms of the perception of the Bharatiya Janata Party seen as an upper caste party? We'll know in times to come. Thank you all for joining us. Up next is Rahul Kanwar.